At 6:43 a.m. on March 14th, 1944, deep in the jungles of Bougainville, Solomon Islands, Sergeant Robert Mitchell was dying. He was 34 years old, with 3 children waiting for him back home, and a 7.62 bullet tearing through his right lung. The shot came from nowhere. No one saw muzzle flash. No one clearly heard the report. And when the other soldiers threw themselves to the ground, covered in mud and their comrades' blood, they realized something terrifying. They had no idea where the shooter was. And he was still there, watching, waiting for the next move. This is where Corporal Thomas Ferris enters the story. 24 years old, a farmer from Wyoming, red hair, freckles across his face, large hands shaped by years of fixing tractors and working the land. Thomas had nothing extraordinary about him. He wasn't the best shot in the company. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the strongest. In fact, he was known for just one thing: stubbornness. While the other 11 men in the patrol lay frozen in the mud, Thomas did something no one expected. He grabbed his rifle, a Springfield M1903 fitted with a 2.5x scope, and began to crawl, alone, straight toward the source of the shot. The other soldiers thought he had lost his mind. The lieutenant shouted for him to come back. It was a direct order. But Thomas didn't turn around, because he had noticed something no one else had. Over the previous 11 days, 7 American soldiers had been killed by Japanese snipers in that same area. Always the same pattern. One shot, an impossible distance to calculate. No trail, no clues. Command knew it wasn't just one man. It was an organized sniper cell, likely 4 or 5 soldiers, trained, patient, and deadly. And Thomas Ferris, the stubborn farmer from Wyoming, was crawling straight toward them. He had one rifle, 40 rounds, 0 sniper combat experience, and a theory. The theory was simple. The Japanese sniper wasn't hidden in the jungle. He was above it. Thomas crawled for 18 minutes. Slowly, painfully slowly. Every movement took nearly 30 seconds. He shifted his right elbow, stopped, breathed. Moved his left knee, stopped again. Mud clung to his face. Insects crawled into his nose. Sweat burned his eyes. But he didn't stop. Because he was counting steps in his head. He knew the shot that killed Mitchell had come from roughly 140 yards away. How did he know? Sound. Thomas had grown up hunting deer in the mountains of Wyoming. He knew the echo of a rifle shot at 100 yards, at 200, at 300. That shot was about 140 yards. Maybe 150. No more than that. And if the sniper was at that distance, and above the jungle, there was only one place he could be. When Thomas finally stopped, directly ahead of him, exactly 87 yards away, stood a massive tree. A banyan fig towering over 30 meters high, with twisted branches and aerial roots hanging like ropes. And up there, hidden among the branches, Thomas saw it, a reflection. Small, fast, like a shard of glass catching sunlight for half a second. The scope of a Japanese rifle. Thomas's heart slammed against his chest, but he didn't move. Now he was certain. The Japanese sniper had no idea he was there. Thomas had 2 options. Option 1, fire immediately. Lying prone in the mud at a partially concealed target with almost no visibility. Option 2, wait. Observe. Look for the mistake. Because every sniper makes a mistake. Always. So Thomas waited. And 9 minutes later, the mistake happened. The Japanese sniper shifted. Just slightly. Enough to adjust the position of his left leg, likely numb after 40 minutes in the same posture. In that brief movement, the outline of his shoulder appeared against the sky for 3 seconds. That was all Thomas needed. He aimed, took 3 deep breaths, held the last one, and pulled the trigger. The shot thundered through the jungle. 240 milliseconds later, the Japanese soldier's body fell from the tree, striking branches on the way down. The rifle hit the ground first. The body followed with a dull, heavy sound. Thomas stayed perfectly still, because he knew one thing. If there was one sniper in that tree, there was probably another one watching. 7 minutes later, Thomas heard a sound. Barely audible. Click. The sound of a bolt being cycled. But it didn't come from the tree. It came from the left, 40 yards away, ground level, hidden behind a fallen log. There was a second sniper, and he was aiming directly at Thomas. If Thomas moved, he would die. So Thomas did something insane, something that defied every survival instinct. He didn't move. He waited. 20 seconds, 30, 45, until the Japanese sniper made the fatal mistake. Believing Thomas was dead, unconscious, or in shock, he stepped out of cover and began walking toward him. That was the moment Thomas rolled his body in one swift motion. 90 degrees. Rifle already aligned. The Japanese sniper saw the movement and tried to raise his weapon, but it was too late. Thomas fired twice. The first round hit the chest. The second struck the neck. The soldier dropped to his knees, released his rifle, and collapsed face first into the mud. Silence. Thomas remained still for 4 more minutes, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. But no more shots came. No movement. Nothing. Thomas returned to camp later that morning, covered in mud, exhausted and shaking. The others didn't believe his story. A patrol was sent to confirm it. They found one Japanese sniper dead beneath a tree, a Type 97 rifle with a 4x scope. A second sniper dead 40 yards away with a Type 38 Arisaka, and something else. A diary in the pocket of the first sniper, written in Japanese. When it was translated, they learned the man was Corporal Takeshi Yamamoto, 29 years old, of the 6th Infantry Division. In his diary, he had recorded 13 confirmed American kills over the previous 18 days. Thomas Ferris had just eliminated one of the deadliest snipers in the South Pacific with 2 shots. After that day, American command realized something critical. They were losing the sniper war. The Japanese had organized cells, specialized training, and superior tactics. The Americans had good marksmen. That wasn't enough. In April 1944, the U.S. Marine Corps created its first official sniper unit, and the man chosen to train the new recruits was Thomas Ferris, the stubborn farmer from Wyoming who, just weeks earlier, had never shot another human being. Over the next 14 months, Thomas trained 276 snipers. Together, they accounted for more than 980 confirmed kills in the Pacific Theater, saving thousands of American lives. Thomas Ferris survived the war. He returned to Wyoming in October 1945, rebuilt his farm, got married, and had 4 children. He never spoke about that day in the jungles of Bougainville, except once, in 1982, at the age of 62. He gave an interview to a local newspaper. When asked what he felt when he shot those men, Thomas replied, "I felt nothing. I just wanted to go home." Today, Thomas Ferris's rifle is displayed at the National WWII Museum in New Orleans. Beside it, simple plaque reads, "The Impossible Sniper, 2 kills, hundreds of lives saved." If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, had you ever heard this story before? Because stories like this must not be forgotten. They must be told.